นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings. Welcome to tonight's Zoom talk. There are certain questions that Buddhists and people interested in Buddhism are always asking. One of them is, why should we meditate? Why do we have to meditate? Another one is, how can we keep our mind peaceful at the end of our life, at the very end of our life? That probably those two questions support each other. How can you keep your mind peaceful at the end of your life? By meditating, learning to meditate before the end of your life. The kind of qualities we're bringing up when we practice meditation are lifelong, useful qualities. Qualities of mindfulness, kindness and compassion, patience, effort, energy, and wisdom, to name but a few. These are all the kind of qualities that will help you at every stage of your life, in every aspect of your life, and right up to the end of your life. And of course, it's difficult to start learning something new right at the end of your life. Not impossible, but difficult. In Australia, the age of retirement, the official age of retirement is 67. I think the average life expectancy in Australia is about 78 years old. So if you work until you're 67, you've got about 9 years to get ready for your death, assuming everything goes according to the statistics. That's 9 years of possible time to train your mind in these qualities that you develop through meditation. Of course, when you're 67 and having worked for a long, long time, you may have accumulated a lot of stress-related illnesses, bad habits, negative habits of mind, worries, attachments, what we call mental defilements rooted in greed, anger, delusion. You've had a lifetime to build them up, and because you spent so much time working, maybe didn't have much time to look into your mind and what's going on. And many people think like this. They think, oh, well, when I retire, then I'll start learning meditation and doing these useful things. But you don't have much time to get going. And it's harder, because physically you'll be weaker and maybe not so healthy. Mentally, you have all this stuff to wade through, a lifetime of attachment and stress that's possibly still coming up. Hopefully nothing too extreme, but you never know, do you? Who knows what they'll be like when they're 67. So better to learn meditation now, whatever your age, whether you're a teenager, young, middle age, old age. Learn now while you're healthy, while you have some interest and energy to devote to the practice. Listen to the Dhamma, train your mind while you can, because who knows what will happen tomorrow. And, while you have your interest today, then use it as your reason to practice and learn meditation and put effort into it. If you were just doing the guided meditation just now, you'll notice how quickly your mind strays off subject. And you give the mind a task to know the breath, say, whether you're knowing the sensation of the breath or counting breaths or reciting the word Buddho, we use as a meditation word, or any other technique to train your mind. You'll notice how quickly your mind wanders off into daydreams, memories, planning the future, wondering about the future, good and bad, distracted by things in the body, sensations, painful feelings, sounds. How easy it is for the mind to wander away, how difficult it is for the mind to stay with the breathing as an object. This is our basic challenge that meditation helps draw attention to. It's how easy our mind goes out from itself into the world through thinking, looking, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, and then just thinking and remembering. How little the mind stays in the present moment with an object such as the breath, and how often we're lost in daydreaming and thinking. So every time you meditate, at the very least, you're learning the importance of meditation, why we do need to meditate, because the mind is untrained, undeveloped, easily distracted. And also you learn how little you know yourself. You are practicing meditation to bring up these qualities of self-awareness, introspection, reflection, learning to look at who you are, look at your thoughts and ideas about who you are, become aware of your physical body and how that manifests and the sensations from the inside. And then what you think about who you are, what you identify with, your moods, your thoughts, your memories, perceptions, your ideas about life and what you want and how you think the world should be, how your world should be. That becomes more apparent as you start meditating, because you're paying attention to something as simple as the breath. But you start noticing all these other things, noticing your body, noticing your thoughts, your ideals, your attitudes as you do that. One of the first things you notice is we have a lot of negative thinking. It's almost our default mode. It's easy to think negatively. And where do those negative thoughts focus? Well, primarily on ourselves, what's wrong. And if not on ourselves, then out towards others. What's wrong with others? So we have a saying, it's easy to find fault with others. It's difficult to see your own faults or know your own faults, because the mind is untrained. When we're caught into negativity, we tend to look around for things to blame or complain about. If you notice as you meditate, you notice a lot of your mental activity is based on this, thinking around past events that have left an impression on the mind that we've remembered and absorbed, often with a lot of emotion as well. And negativity comes in the form of thinking and emotions, unpleasant feelings. And often we then project onto the future as well. You notice how the more you attach to the past in a negative way, remembering the unpleasant things, the disappointments, the faults of others, and the negative behavior of others that you feel have affected you, the more you'll project that onto the future as well and say, well, they're going to be like that again. Why do I have to experience all this stuff? Why are they going to do that again? They haven't even done anything yet, but you're already predicting it and expecting it. If it's not other people, then we tend to turn back on ourselves. Why do I make these mistakes? Why is my life so bad? And then looking at the future, well, it's always going to be bad. This is what you notice when you meditate. So one of the most valuable qualities of bringing up this quality of mindfulness is that you can be with all that without adding on to it, increasing the suffering. You notice when you are experiencing some suffering, whether it's physical or mental, you tend to build it up more. Your negative thoughts compound, add on through habit and through a lack of mindfulness. And they tend to increase. Painful feelings stimulate negative reactions. Painful memories stimulate negative reactions and negative thinking. And just negative thinking itself breeds and encourages more negative thinking. And so we experience a lot of cycles of negativity, agitation, and so on. So often the first part of meditation is you have to be quite strong and quite patient with yourself and with the mind, what's going on. Well, you'll notice when you bring up mindfulness, it's your mind at that moment is not adding on anything. It's just knowing, oh, it's like this. And you have to be quite mature and accepting if you are now noticing a lot of negativity. Just accept that. Oh, it's like this. You might call that the first insight. When you're mindful, is you're recognizing the way things are. When we're not mindful, we tend to react, don't we? So if there is negativity and you start noticing that as you meditate, if you're not so mindful, not so aware, you'll tend to complain about yourself, your own mind, and say, oh, I think too much, I can't meditate, my thoughts are so negative, I'm such a bad person. And we drag ourselves down very quickly and we undermine our own efforts in the meditation. And what's the point is another one. And what's the point of meditating? I always think the same old negative thoughts, unhappy thoughts, miserable thoughts. There's always the same agitation, restlessness. And we don't see how we're compounding it, following sort of cycles and habits of negative thinking. So we have negative thinking, then we have negative thinking because we have negative thinking. All because of the lack of mindfulness. But when you're mindful, you're just saying, oh, it's like this. You don't have to ask the question, why? Why is my mind so unpeaceful? Why is there so much stuff happening that I don't like, don't want? You're just knowing it. So the quality of mindful awareness is a very mature and peaceful quality of mind. Peaceful within the midst even of a lot of negative emotions and agitated thinking that you might be experiencing. And it allows you to learn from that experience, because when you're mindful, you pay attention. You know, when you're following the breath, breathe in, breathe out, and stuff is coming into your mind, you can pay attention. You can know what is coming up into your awareness at that time. But rather than getting caught up into a judgment or complaining mode, You just know it. Oh, it's like this. There's a certain acceptance, but when you're mindful, you're not indulging. You're just knowing, oh, it's like this. And you might recognize, oh, this is suffering. This is the first noble truth we're aiming for in practice, just to know suffering as suffering. Painful feelings of body are like this. Unpleasant mind states are like that. So, for instance, if you notice your habit is to keep remembering what other people have said and done that you didn't like, so in a critical way, negative way, the fault-finding mind. Well, when you establish mindfulness, recognize that that's suffering. Always dwelling on the faults of others just doesn't make your mind peaceful, does it? That's something you have to know. It's not just something you remember from teachings, wise sayings. Something you have to know in your own mind, in your own experience. And when you know, then you'll start wanting to let go of that habit. The mindfulness is the forerunner or the precondition for wisdom. They work together, but without any kind of mindfulness, without paying attention, we can't see what's going on. We can't see the suffering of what we're attaching to and clinging to and desiring. So we won't think of letting go. But when you establish mindfulness, you can recognize, oh, this is suffering. And when you recognize suffering, you want to put that thing down. The mindfulness is a cause for wisdom. This is why over and over again we say, practice with mindfulness, bring it up. And be patient with the negativity that you may be revealing or exposing to yourself. And we have to go through a lot of disappointments, discontent, agitation before we can let go. So you also need a lot of patience when you practice mindfulness. Patience with the loss of mindfulness. You lose your mindfulness, forget the breath, your mind wanders, you have to bring it back. You need patience for that. And then patience for what you're observing that comes up in your mind. With patience, you're keeping a skillful state of mind as you deal with whatever's coming up. There'll be plenty to trigger negative reactions, plenty of memories, sometimes pain in the body, sometimes unpleasant memories and stuff that keeps coming up in your life. There'll be plenty to trigger negative thinking. But the aim is to have enough mindfulness to see that, catch it before you get lost, before your mind just loses all awareness and gets lost back in those negative emotions. So you need the patience to do that. Because the opposite of patience, impatience, is when we're despairing, we become impatient. When the negative thinking or the negative emotions come up so strongly that they prompt us to act in unskillful ways, speak in unskillful ways. And the mind can't be at ease anymore, and then we get caught into despair and we lose our patience. So sometimes just reminding yourself to be patient as you meditate will help. Be patient with this, be with this. So many people have said they have had insights when they're practicing mindfulness, that say with the breath over and over again and dealing with their untrained, untamable mind, apparently untamable mind. But just keep watching the thoughts arise and pass away. And sometimes they get very frustrated and they have that thought, I can't do this anymore, I can't meditate anymore. But they've had enough patience and enough of a small amount of clarity, at least, to say, no, I'm not going to stop. I'll just keep watching. So the thought that comes up that says, I can't do this anymore, I can't go on anymore, the thought of complete despair and disappointment fades out because it's not being acted on. You know, if you don't hold on to a thought, you don't act on it, you don't believe it, you don't keep it in mind and give it any kind of energy, it tends to dissolve and fade away. And if it was a really powerful negative thought and you've seen it dissolve, fade away, you get a lot of strength of mind and insight from that. And you know, these thoughts, these emotions are just temporary surges, or like waves, you know, waves on the ocean that come in really tall, frightening waves, but they just break on the shore and then disappear again. And you know that. This is what we call insight, when you gain some understanding of the impermanent nature or the lack of self in a particular emotion. What facilitates that is practicing mindfulness. You know, we really need to make that mindfulness continuous, using the breath or any other meditation object, using the patience, using the goodwill that also comes with the practice, and just sticking with it until you can see even the most miserable mind state or emotion dissolving away, being willing to outlast it through your meditation. Then you get this strength of mind, some inner confidence, faith in the practice, faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the Buddha who taught the practice, the Dhamma, the truth that you are practicing and seeing. In the Sangha, those who have practiced this, you get that faith coming up because you've seen for yourself through your own practice, your own effort, that suffering is something that comes up through causes and conditions, but it can also pass away again. And you've seen it through from start to finish. You've been meditating, and the unpleasant memory or the pain in the body, whatever it is, the suffering, it comes up, but you stick with the practice, keep establishing mindfulness, keep noting, and you let go. And you can remember that. The stronger your mindfulness becomes, we call that samadhi, when your mindfulness is more continuous and body and mind are more peaceful, more stable. That allows these kinds of insights to go in deeper, maybe deeper than before. You know, first you start practicing meditation, your mindfulness is not very strong, but you have a few insights, you're sort of vaguely aware how thoughts come and go, feelings come and go. It makes sense, but hasn't gone in very deep. Maybe no profound change to your mental experience. But if you keep meditating, maybe over time, as mindfulness improves and you experience a little bit more deeper samadhi, longer lasting states of samadhi, the mind can really see the impermanent nature of suffering and the negative emotions that bring up suffering. And some of that insight stays in the heart. It actually changes the way you respond to the world. And the idea being that suffering gets less, which is why we're doing this practice. And that's going to stay with you right to the end of the life. So whatever it is that you may be afraid of or worried about when you ask the question, how do I keep my mind peaceful at the end of my life? How important is the last moment of my consciousness before I die? all these kind of questions. Well, you're answering those questions for yourself through your own practice. If you keep practicing every day, the importance of that question will gradually fade, because you realize it depends, the last moment of your life depends like on this moment. This moment could be the last moment of your life. If you're practicing and you're learning how to practice in this moment, then the last moment of your life will come out of this moment, as it were. And where does the future come from? It comes from the present. If you're developing mindfulness and understanding and insight right now, that's what will be coming up at the end of your life. What our teachers say is, they say at the end of your life, when you die, what happens is, the physical body stops working, as you would expect, stops breathing, goes cold, the blood stops pumping, everything stops for whatever reason. So many reasons people will die, but for whatever reason, everything physically stops. But the mind doesn't stop. It's just we haven't proven that yet because we haven't died. But one way you get insight into that is when you develop samadhi, develop this mindfulness, learn to overcome some of the negative distracting thoughts, and develop this serene state of samadhi, stillness, quietness on the inside. Then you may even experience your mind gathering together and letting go of all the thoughts about other people and work and the past and the future and all the things that normally fill our mental activity out. And the mind just goes still on the inside, lets go of the body, just like somebody dying. Except for you're not dead, you're awake, you're aware, you're alive. You're just not caught up in the normal mental proliferation and all the negative thinking and distraction. But when that happens, when you experience that, the mind is still and has gone on the inside. It's a bit like death. Ajahn Chah used to say, dying before you die. And your mental energy gathers together, becomes very peaceful, and the mindfulness is continuous. So that at that moment, at that time, your mind is not distracted, it's not suffering. Whatever's happening to the body, you may have a very old, painful body, but the mind is not attached to it at that moment. It's peaceful on the inside. You can see that's like death. When you die, obviously you have to let go of the body, but the mind gathers together and its internal good qualities come together. Number one internal good quality is this quality of knowing, mindfulness. I had a friend once who did seem to almost die because he had malaria. He was completely exhausted and he passed out. His head hit the floor with a crack, unfortunately, and he keeled over. He was so weak. But luckily he didn't die. We nursed him, and after a few hours he woke up again. He said as he was experiencing that, he thought he was dying. He was going unconscious because the body was so weak with malaria and just through exertion, walking, collecting food in the morning on an empty stomach with malaria. It just put too much stress on his body. So he passed out unconscious, hit the ground. He said as that was happening, he thought he was dying, but all his mental energy just gathered together. His mind went really peaceful on the inside. So he let go of the body. And he said the nature of samadhi, when you let go of the body like that, when you seem to be dying, it has a protective nature. It protects the mind from falling into despair, fear, anguish, negativity, doubt. All these normal distracted states of mind fade out. And the mind is just quiet and peaceful, bright. And unfortunately, he didn't die. He came out of that. But he could remember what happened. All the meditation teachers say, well, that's what happens when you die. If you've been practicing meditation through your life, the meditation has this protective power that will lead your mind to gather together as you die and be peaceful. If you're really peaceful, maybe reborn as a Brahma god. If not, maybe in a heavenly realm. But the mind will be in a wholesome state as a result of this meditation you've been practicing. And sometimes it just happens quite naturally as well through your life. If before you've died, you can even experience it when your mind just naturally gathers together. Sometimes something prompts the attention to go inwards and to drop all the worries, the restlessness, the agitation. Maybe hearing Dhamma teachings or recollecting the Dhamma, or just being in a certain situation where your mind is quiet, it just absorbs into itself. And all the distraction and the suffering disappears. And you realize, the mind can be very peaceful. At that point, there's no anguish, no focusing on other people's faults and what they've said and done, not getting caught up in your own self-aversion, guilt, worry. The mind just goes peaceful. And sometimes it can be you're just sitting in a car as a passenger and your mind gathers together, goes into samadhi. Sometimes it can be seeing someone else doing something very good, somebody making a offering, doing some charity or some dana. Sometimes it can be seeing something very sad, just the sadness, the poignancy of a certain situation. It could be being witnessing someone else experiencing the hardships of life, seeing them or hearing about them, hearing about the suffering of someone else, or seeing it, witnessing it. Your mind can go into samadhi, realizing that your attachment to the world and the things of the world is just suffering. It comes with life. When you're born as a human being, you're going to experience some suffering. There's no way around it. When the mind, sometimes it recognizes that, it goes into samadhi, letting go of the normal thinking and attachments. Samadhi plays this role when you practice mindfulness, develop mindfulness more continuously. You experience states of samadhi, even if it's only briefly. It gives you this insight into the nature of the world, how the world is bound up with suffering, but how suffering can be let go of also. So it's a very positive experience that uplifts the mind. So accompanying samadhi, we get piti and sukha, we get joy, the radiance of the mind. And if you practice this more often, well, you'll become more familiar with the joy, the radiance of the mind. It gives you more confidence in the path of practice. You realize the path of the world, just trying to accumulate wealth and pleasant experiences to escape from suffering, doesn't really work. And in a way, it's pointless. So it's the basis for insight as well. Developing samadhi is the basis for panya, insight into the nature of suffering, how it arises, how it ends. So however challenging or difficult your meditation seems from time to time, don't despair, don't give up, just keep going. We all need to be more patient, put in more effort, but if you do a little or a lot every day, you'll find the level of your mindfulness, experiences of samadhi will grow. And don't wait till the end of your life when you retire and you're struggling with your health or whatever. Do it now. Practice now, and you'll find this will be one of the most protective things you can have in your life. There's a protective quality. So I'll leave the talk there, and if there's any questions tonight, we can see if we can answer them afterwards.
Andamayang Dhammakataya Sadhu Karang Dadamase Sadhu 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 Anumodami